Hey everybody, Movie Reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time I'm starting another series, a small series, 3 movies, and I'm starting with Kingsman: The Secret Service. This is a 2015 spy thriller, kind of bit of comedy film, directed by Matthew Vaughn, and it stars Taron Egerton, Colin Firth, Samuel L. Jackson, Mark Strong, Sophie Cookson, Sophia Boutella, and Michael Caine. In this film, this is the story of a super secret spy organization that recruits an unrefined and but promising street kid into the agency's ultra-competitive training program just as a global threat emerges from a twisted tech genius. So, what did I think of Kingsman: The Secret Service? Well, I fucking loved it. I adore this movie. I have a hard time finding really anything legitimately wrong about it. Now, am I saying it's perfect? No. I do have some teeny tiny little things, but other than those tiny little things, I adore this movie. I love it. And I can honestly 100% see why it has 2 sequels. Now, let me get to the cast. Sorry about that. Taron Egerton plays Gary Eggsy Unwin. He's a chav, street kid in London, kind of poor. Mother's living with basically, I guess, a mafia head or something. And he kind of gets recruited into the Kingsman training program and everything. I haven't seen Taron Egerton in a lot of things, but I can definitely say that his also, apparently there's going to be a 4th Kingsman movie. I did not know that. He's good in the role. I don't think he's perfect. There are times where his acting... There's some times where I swear his chav accent doesn't exactly... There's a few moments where his accent kind of slips, and it did catch me off guard, and I was like, okay, that was weird. I don't think that was a choice. I think that was just him kind of messing up a little bit. But I still think he did a good job. He performed well in the action scenes and everything. Colin Firth plays Harry Hart, or Galahad. I think they're implying the Kingsman's best agent. He basically takes Eggsy under his wing. I like Colin Firth a lot. I've always liked him. And I think he does a really great job here. Well, not even just great. He's awesome in this role. It's a perfect role for him. He's the perfect age for it, where he's clearly like a veteran agent, but he doesn't look like he can't do anything that he's supposed to. You know, like the action scenes. He does an exceptional job in the action scenes, for real. I don't know how much of it is a stunt double, but if it was a stunt double a lot of the time where he's moving fast, then they did a fucking bang up job fucking hiding it. And yeah, he was awesome. Samuel L. Jackson plays Valentine. He's our villain. And usually I'm not huge on Samuel L. Jackson because I feel like he plays the same character in everything. But for this, I think he did a pretty awesome job playing quite against type. He's got a bit of a lisp. He's hates the sight of blood. He'll still cuss, but he's not just there to do that. I'm glad that Matthew Vaughn gave him a character that was not just every other movie he's been in to play. And I think he makes for a pretty terrifying villain given what his plot ultimately is, which I'll talk about. Sophie Cookson plays Roxy. She's a girl that's being trained alongside the Kings, alongside Eggsy. She's fine. She doesn't have a ton to do, to be honest, but at least I liked her and Eggsy's friendly chemistry. Sophia Boutella plays Gazelle. She is the henchman to Valentine. I really like Sophia Boutella. I think she's a great actress. Here she doesn't do a ton of acting, but she works in her role. She's an actually pretty cool henchman character. It doesn't feel forced that she's a woman. I like that they used that as more to their advantage rather than using it to push a statement. And Michael Caine plays Arthur. He's the leader of the Kingsmen. or at least this branch. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I always like Michael Caine. He's works well for his role. But Kingsman: The Secret Service, this movie, back when it came out, I was in high school. And, or no, maybe I was in middle school actually. I might have been at the end of middle school or at the beginning of high school. And I remembered a lot of kids talking, like a friend of mine in school told me about it and was like, "Oh, it's so sick. There's that one part," and talking about all this, and I was just like, "Wow, this sounds interesting." And it took me a few years to actually see it for the first time, and I remember being blown away by it when I first saw it. I was like, "Wow, this is just a fucking load of fun." Like, with movies like this, one thing that you tend to get quite often is an overbloated movie with a few cool things. I'd say Inception was kind of that way, where I feel like if you shaved like 20 minutes off of the runtime and tightened up a few dialogue sequences, then and added a bit more to the experimenting with the dream world, then you'd have an amazing movie on your hands. With this movie, I think they understood. I think Matthew Vaughn understood exactly what to do because he really just he knows how to do this type of film, and it's just a fucking load of fun to watch. Like, you've got a great cast again: Taron Egerton, um, Colin Firth, Samuel Jackson, Michael Caine, Sophia Botella, all these people. Mark Strong also. Um, you have really well done action sequences. And okay, one thing I talk about a lot on this channel is how over editing can very much destroy an action movie. Because if the action scenes are really tough to watch because of the over editing to the point where you have no geography for what's happening, you can't tell who got hit or whatever or what happened, then it can completely destroy an action movie because a lot of what makes an action movie is action scenes. So take something like Taken 3 or Columbiana. A lot of the action scenes in those films are over edited to the point where it feels like a desperate attempt to keep your eyes on the screen because they don't have enough confidence in the action scenes that they have put together, that they don't have enough confidence in them to leave you with them just as being action scenes. They want to over edit them to the point where they're like, "Okay, pay attention to me, pay attention to me." I've heard some people say that about this film. And where I will disagree is how it is edited. It is edited in a way where I feel like a lot of the action scenes, especially earlier on in the film, come off a bit more comedic in a way. And one action scene that I cannot I wouldn't believe anybody saying it's over edited is the Westglade Church or the New Glade, whatever it was. The scene that's supposed to be kind of parodying the Westboro Baptist Church cult. That scene, also for the people who don't know what that is, the scene where they're playing Freebird and Harry fucking goes crazy and kills a bunch of people. That scene is so well done. The way that they hide the secret camera cuts, the way that he moves throughout the scene, the kind of manic camera work that's not shaky cam, but just shaky enough that you have a momentum. You feel like you're being taken on this ride. And that's what I feel like a lot of these action scenes have that a lot of movies nowadays just don't. Like, take John Wick Chapter 4, for example, which I wasn't huge on at all. I gave it a 6. I think what was lacking in a lot of those action scenes was some feeling of momentum. Because it just, to me, felt like completely differently shot than the first 3. The writer from the first 3 that wrote all the witty dialogue that I actually did enjoy wasn't in that one, and it felt like it, because John Wick Chapter 4 is fucking depressing in some points, to the point where I was like, okay, I want to turn this off, and it's also like 3 hours. And just the action scenes just felt like, oh, He's shooting a bunch of people. Oh, he hit someone with nunchucks. Instead of the first three movies where it actually felt like the camera like moved with the action. It felt like they like put it down a dolly track and it's like, okay, whatever. We're following him moving through this place, whatever. It felt artificially extended also to the point where the action scenes had lost their punch, which is a big issue. You can have a well choreographed action scene that goes on too long and then the audience gets bored. That's not what happens here. The longest action scene in the film is the longest continuous action scene without like breaks is probably the church action scene, and it is so very well choreographed, well shot. The music fits. Just everything about the scene is so well done. I've also heard the argument that the blood doesn't look great. I don't think it looks bad. Like the CGI, there is going to be a lot of CGI help in this type of movie because there's the bit later on where like people all around the world are going crazy. You're going to need CGI enhancements for some of that. There's certain shots where clearly they'll have to extend them digitally because not everybody can afford like a bunch of fighter pilots or a bunch of planes and shit. And I don't think the film ever really shows its hand too bad with these. The only scene where I can see people being like, okay, that's very obviously green screen or projection, is the scene where Eggsy and Harry are in the changing room at the tailors, and it's the floor is lowering. The brick wall did look a bit weird, so I can very easily tell that that's green screen or some type of manipulation digitally is going on. But other than that, for the most part, the film just... I was having so much fun that a lot of the technical, like, things that may not be 100% didn't really bother me. I had fun with this. That's the difference between these and the last two Bond movies for me. Because Spectre and No Time to Die, I was so bored. The action scenes had really no punch to them. Like, I know those are PG-13 and this is R, so this one can show a lot more blood. But you can still have very well choreographed fight scenes on a PG-13 film. Most of Jackie Chan's films that people love and adore are PG-13 or PG. So that's not really an excuse at this point. You can definitely choreograph super fun action scenes without needing that. Like Salt, for instance. I think Salt put together a lot of very interesting chase sequences and fight scenes without needing the R rating. The shootout on the boat, the frickin'... well, that was in the unrated cut. The bit where she's trying to run away from the other agents and she, like, makes the bazooka out of the cleaning supplies. Like, the bit where she's under the museum. Like, there are ways to make action scenes in PG-13 films that aren't neutered looking. Live Free or Die Hard, also. Very fun action sequences in that. Very larger than life, but still fun. Like, they didn't feel like, okay, this is obviously CGI. That's what I felt in the latest Bond films. Like, they felt so neutered. And there's a lot of other issues for me with the Bond films as of recent. But even the Daniel Craig movies I like, Quantum of Solace, Casino Royale to an extent, Skyfall to an extent, for sure. Skyfall is the weakest of the Craig movies for me. Like, I still find this so much easier to go back to. For one, it's 2 hours and 9 minutes. I did not feel that runtime at all. At no point was I bored at this movie. The action, again, action is very spectacularly done. Some people might not like the editing style. I was fine with it. I like the stylish nature of it. The acting, I think Taron Egerton and Colin Firth are a lot more fun than Daniel Craig. I don't hate Daniel Craig. I don't like him as Bond though. I don't. Like okay in a couple of the Bond movies. I'm not really a big fan of him as Bond overall. The villain. The villain here is so much fun. Like yes, it's your classic like kind of Bond-esque megalomaniac villain. And they do a good job of deconstructing that and also parodying it. Um to the point where there was a bit of product placement in this movie that when I first saw it and even still now, I find it an interesting decision. Like Gazelle, like there's a bit where Harry Hart is going undercover to talk to Valentine, and she, they end up having a dinner together, and she wheels out this cart, and then she ends up opening it up, and then the music like swells, and it's like McDonald's, and I I'm sorry, I laughed at that. It's a bit of product placement that doesn't feel so much product placement as it is the punchline to a joke. Because you're expecting something way worse. You're expecting like somebody's head or something like that, like in other type like Bondish types of movies. But then you get that, and I was like, okay, that's a pretty funny joke. I like it. They make a pretty bad wordplay later, but it works. It works for what they're going for. And yeah, like I find it hard to really get mad at a movie like this or to even come up with things that I disliked about it because I just had so much fun with it. I love movies like this that aren't trying to push anything and are just fun. Like somebody might make the argument that Sophie Cookson being in it as like the one of the only Kingsman candidates that's a woman, whatever. But it honestly doesn't feel forced because they gave her a character. Her character isn't ever talking about, oh, you gave it to him and not me because I'm a woman. Like she's just like, okay, I'm gonna do my best. I have to do better than my best in order to do this. Like she's just a normal character. I like that. Maybe it's the British influence. I don't know. Since this is, I'm guessing technically a British film. Maybe British American. I don't know. But I just love this movie. I have a really hard time finding issues with it. Other than like there might be a couple tiny bits of CGI that weren't 100%, but whatever. Like this movie is just so much fun to watch. And again, if anybody here hasn't seen it, definitely go watch it. I'll get back to you on the sequels though. We'll see. I've never seen the sequels before. But yeah. That was my review of Kingsman: The Secret Service. If you have any recommendations, put them down in the comments down below. If you have any, if you've seen the film and want to share your thoughts with me, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door, out.